This is the December 24th, 1938 edition of The State magazine. It was The State before it became Our State magazine. And the first article is Milton and Other Places. It was written by the publisher and editor of the magazine, Goerch. And I would like to read this to you on the occasion of Christmas Eve, when this article was published about 85 years ago. Comparatively few folks have ever heard of Milton, and even fewer have been there. And yet, it is a most interesting place, and so are some of these other places mentioned in this article. The State Highway Department deserves the highest praise for its efficiency in marking the roads in various sections of the state, but there's a slight slip-up in the markings at Roxborough. Usually, when you see highway direction signs in a town, the signboards contain the route number and also the name of the next town and the mileage there too. But in Roxborough, the signs merely show the route numbers, and unless you are acquainted with those, you're liable to get into trouble. That's exactly what happened to us last week. We were in Roxborough and wanted to drive over to Yanceyville. After having visited the office of the Roxborough Courier and chatted with F.O. Carver and D.R. Taylor for a few minutes, Old Man J.W. Noel was out to lunch. We headed back toward the main street and observed the highway signs. U.S. number 501 was straight ahead, so we took that, but soon realized that we were heading in the wrong direction. We turned around, went back to our original starting point, and took NC 144 and 57. And that's how we happened to get to Milton. We want to tell you something about Milton because 9/10 of the population of North Carolina probably never have heard about the place. When we left Roxborough, instead of going due west to Yanceyville, we swung to the north, and that's how we arrived at Milton. It is right jammed up against the Virginia line, 17 miles northwest of Roxborough. First off, when we saw the town in the distance, we thought we were arriving at Yanceyville, but the sign at the edge of town told us different. It's an old-looking town, old store buildings, ancient houses, and an air of established permanency about it. A restful, quiet atmosphere, entirely different from the hustle and bustle of so many other North Carolina towns. There were a few people on the street, and they didn't seem to be doing anything in particular. We stopped in front of the village drugstore and went inside. There was a man behind the soda fountain, and 3 other men were sitting down and talking. "Coca-Cola," we told the clerk proprietor. He served it. "We've traveled all over North Carolina," we told the owner of the store, "but this is the first time we've ever been to Milton." One of the other men looked up. "You ain't missed much," he said laconically. "You got no business saying that, Jim," reported the man behind the counter. "Let me tell you something, stranger. This here town was incorporated the same year that Baltimore was incorporated, back in 1791. "Yeah," said Jim, "and look at Baltimore now, and then look at us." "Don't mind him," said our informant, whose name we found out a few minutes later was Newman. "Don't mind him, he's just an old pessimist." "Give me a Coca-Cola," said Jim. Mr. Newman groped around in the container. "I don't know whether it's very cold or not," he told Jim. "Mine is very nice," I offered. "Well," said Jim, "yours has probably been in that box ever since the town was incorporated. He don't sell more than 2 or 3 a week." "That's a lie," said Mr. Newman. Jim just sniffed. "Yes, sir," went on Mr. Newman. "This is a sure enough old town. See that place across the street? That old brick building with the white shutters? 8 presidents of the United States spent the night in that house. It used to be the hotel here." "Who are the 8 presidents?" I inquired. "Well, let's see. Darned if I can remember. Jim, who are the 8 presidents that stayed at the old hotel?" Jim put down his Coca-Cola bottle and proceeded to think. "Seems like I've heard that Ben Franklin was one of them," he offered. Mr. Newman snorted in disgust. "Franklin was never a president," he told Jim. And then, turning to me, he added, "I've forgotten who the 8 were, but I've heard all my life that there were 8. We had a very interesting conversation for 10 or 15 minutes, and we really hated to leave Mr. Newman, Jim, and the rest of the crowd. In the past, we've made the statement several times that when we got tired of working, we intended moving down to Southport and spending the rest of our lives there. But after having visited Milton, we're going to put that community as a close second on our list. We can't imagine anything finer than going into Mr. Newman's drugstore every day and listening to him and Jim quarreling. The other folks said that they do it all the time. You see, comparatively few people ever get to Milton due to the fact that it is off the main line of travel. But the next time you're up that way, by all means, visit the place because it is entirely different from most other towns in the state. The end. And there you have our Christmas Eve story for today. And if you look, they included a picture of what they called the old hotel, which supposedly housed 8 presidents, and it has the white shutters. We will have more on this article in the time to come, in the days to come, but we've thoroughly enjoyed reading it to you. Merry Christmas.